Hi everyone, Tony Tonkin here again with the Tony Tonkin Show. Heaven only knows what that means, but I thought it would be fancy given that so many other people have their names in their shows. So, and I just need to say that that even though this is the first time doing a lot of live feeds on, so this is going also to YouTube and to Twitch, and I just want to say for those people that are watching me on YouTube, please press the button and subscribe and so on. Do your thing. That'd be good. And I'm sorry if I have to look down and look odd because I've got a double vision problem at the moment. So that in itself is a wee bit confusing. So everything looks, and I can't quite put my finger on things because they're a bit obscure. And then when I start to look at my screen, as I'll be doing in a moment, reading some article, I will tend to close one eye. So thanks for being with me, though. And I'm also Facebooking this as well. I don't know why, because this might be rather contentious. And it's about Facebook that I wanted to talk, because yesterday I read a post on Facebook that was it was a photograph of a page talking about Grace Tame, who's the Australian of the Year, and for those of you who didn't know, and the comments underneath I found really disturbing, because they were about attacking Grace for being what a whole lot of people thought was that she was aggressive. Look, I took my time to think about whether Grace was a valued Australian of the Year or not, and whether she had something to contribute to the debate. And I've since watched her a number of times, and I really like her. I think that she is a person with lived experiences. She is passionate about her quest to have fairness and equity brought to the domestic violence space, and I understand that there are lots of people out there who object to her for varying reasons, many reasons I do not understand and can't quite comprehend, but people do object. And the thing that occurred to me was that there was a lot of objection around her supposedly being angry. And I thought this was quite interesting, coming from a whole host of men who themselves were angry. They were angry at her. And they were angry at her because she was a woman, I think. And I've got an example in a moment where they won't be angry at somebody else who's trying to do the similar sort of thing to Grace, but they won't be angry because he's a sports star and he's male. And I kept on reading these comments, and I was becoming more and more agitated, because I thought the very thing that Grace and other people are trying to work to overcome, which is about respecting women, all these guys, and they were all guys, were choosing to have a go at her, because these men hate having women who have powerful positions telling them what their experiences, that is, those experiences of women, are like, and men don't like it. A lot of men don't like it, not all men, right? And I do need to remind myself that Facebook and Twitter are a relatively small portion of the community, in effect. So, obviously these are not the majority of the voices, but I couldn't help but think, if you're so resentful around women, how is it? This is the very battle that most women have to encounter, is you resentful, self-aggrandizing, resentful, pitiful sort of people. And as a male, I become really distressed by the way my own gender tends to talk. about women. We're trying to build a society in which we understand what's going on for other people, regardless of who you are, regardless of ethnicity, your religious, cultural values, whatever. Our role, I think, in a society is to try and understand how those experiences are for those individuals, and then to perhaps, in many cases, change our behaviour so that we can acknowledge for these other people what it is like for them, and so that their experiences can improve. But what a lot of these men tend to do is they focus on their own hatred of women. And I wonder, so many of these men have been aggrieved, they believe, by a woman, or it might have been their mother, or it might have been their ex-partner. So as a result of this sense of aggrievement they have, or dislike, or a hatred towards a particular person that has harmed them, they think all the women are the same. So they trot out these statements around feminists, that all feminists are these man-hating individuals. And I know I'm married to a feminist, and I know that there's a broad spectrum of feminist beliefs and philosophies and theology and theories, rather, that is extremely broad. And a lot of people seem to think they have this homogenous view of what a feminist is, and they don't understand that there are so many different versions of feminism, as there are so many different versions of masculinity. My best version of masculinity is a male who is respectful, who listens to what someone else has to say, acknowledges when your behaviour has been hurtful to another, even though you may not think personally that it was intended that way. That's irrelevant. It's about how it impacts other people. That I think that males should be loving and compassionate and thoughtful, and all those sorts of wonderful qualities. It's about what masculinity to me is. But it's not just about masculinity, it's about what we, or how we should view each other, really. But there are so many of these hateful, resentful bastards out there who do the very thing that they say they want done for them, they're doing the opposite. So there's a lot of men out there who just simply want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They want to be understood. I think that's probably part of who all of us are, really. And there's so many of us who just want those things. And because someone else is saying, these are the issues for me, and this is how I want to be heard, and how I want to be understood. And if that's a woman saying that to them, all their prejudices about women rise to the surface, and they start to articulate this garbage about women in general, and about all women, and particularly about women who are prominent women, such as Grace is. And they then lose sight of what this really is all about. And it's about trying to understand how we can start to think about each other differently and treat each other with respect. And they themselves will argue, a lot of these guys will argue, that the reason why they are the way they are, because they have been so disrespected, that women have taken them to court, women have walked off with their kids, women have done all these terrible things to them. And then they drag out some terrible facts, I think, about the fact that, one guy dragged out some facts that 75% of men who wind up in jail, who commit crimes, whatever, all had a single mum, right? So they had this single mother who obviously was pretty crappy because these kids went off and did all these other things. Whereas if they had a male looking after them, or an appropriate heterosexual type relationship, I guess, then these kids would have been okay because they would have had males in their lives. They lose sight of the fact that most of these women are single, primarily because a lot of the men who are fathers to these kids have abdicated total responsibility around parenting these children anyway. And that has ended up in these children being left with their mother. And I know from my experience that there are heaps of men who have said, if this goes to the family court, and if I have to pay X amount of dollars, I'm going to go unemployed, so I'm not going to pay any money for my kids at all. I'm going to just abandon my responsibility around these children, and they can go off and do whatever they do. And there are so many, and men don't understand, I think, what it is like for a single mum to raise their kids. I just think they just have no concept of what that is like. I'm not saying that women are better at it than men, because I don't believe that at all. Men are just as capable as women of being single parents. I get all of that. And I understand that the system to a lot of men does not seem fair. I also know that the family court system to a lot of women doesn't seem fair either. It breaks both ways. It's not more levelled to one area than perhaps at another. It's just totally unfair right across the board. And I think that there has to come a time when we have to understand if we're feeling resentful towards a particular person or a group of people, we have to kind of understand, try and work out what those prejudices are. Why are they there in the first place? and if they rest upon just one incident, a bad experience, a traumatic experience that you've had with a woman, does that mean that every woman that you meet is going to be? And what does that turn out to look like in terms of relationships? When a male decides that they want to have another relationship with another woman, but they see all women as the same. So this new partner winds up being to them as hostile to them as what the other partner is, because this other person happens to be a woman. I think that those sort of ideas breed a continual framework for domestic violence and disrespect of women. And we as men have to bloody well grow up. It's come a time when we have to start to realise that the stories that we're being told about the way women experience us are their stories and are their versions of the truth. It isn't for us to redefine whatever that truth is according to us. It's about listening to what others are saying. And people like Grace Tame have got a genuine story about the things that happened to her, and as a result of that story and advocating, she's actually to change some legislation in Tasmania. The sense of resentment we feel often is damaging to everybody. It just doesn't produce good outcomes when we're angry. And the point I'm making is that it's when women stand up for their rights, then a lot of men get upset. So it'd be okay if men stood up for what they believed as their rights, and they would object if women objected to the men and what they were saying about what they believed to be their rights. So there's this strange dichotomy, if you like. There's two ends to this spectrum where one group does not like what the other group's saying, so they put up the borders, the barriers, and they, hurl insults at each other. And none of that is helpful. But my point is, because it's a woman doing it, then that in itself breeds discontent and anger and hatred from a whole host of men who should bloody well learn to grow up. I've often thought, that if men were to have children, this population would decrease dramatically, because I don't think men could suffer the pain. And ever tried carrying around a baby for 9 months or so, and see what that's like, right? Give it a shot, fellas. Carry around a large bundle on your stomach, and I know that plenty of guys do, but carry around a hairy little bundle that kicks every now and again, that causes mood changes and whatever in you, messes around with your system. Do that for 9 months. and see whether, there's a reason why women are the ones doing all of that, because they can tolerate it probably much better than us men could have if we were given that opportunity. So think about that one, because otherwise, there is a bizarre reason why they give birth, not us. Maybe that's it. I just wanted to go to this particular page. I've just got to try and find it on my... Here we go. So this is Gavin Wang. For those people that don't know who Gavin is, Gavin was a footballer, played for Essendon and then for Port Adelaide, I think. And he, or the Power, he's famous, I guess, for being an Indigenous person, played football, very successful at that. He's got 5 kids of his own, and he is in this article, which was in the Advertiser today. We've got the power to end violence was the title for the article. And is huge advocate promoting respectful relationships and empowering women. So this is, for some men, a revolutionary idea. Now, I think that because he happens to be a well-known sports person, that there probably won't be any men kicking up a fuss about what this man's doing in terms of he's got some funding to teach young people, primarily in Indigenous communities, about leadership and about how to be respectful to women. Now, if it was a woman, I guess my point is that if it was a woman making this sort of statement and setting up whatever, there'd be a whole range of objections from men who would think that the feminist perspective is taking over their lives and that they're so angry and hostile towards us men. But because Gavin's doing it, I don't think there'll be any objections at all from any men. There'll be a lot of men who think, well, why are you doing that? But there won't be anybody saying that won't be as hostile towards Gavin because he's a male and because he's a sports person. So I'll be interested to know what you think about this conversation and about misogyny in general and about men's hatred towards women and why they might choose to feel that way. Make any comments below on my Facebook page or on YouTube or Twitch. So thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.